What's up, you guys? UFO Proof here. You have to excuse me. I've been really sick the past couple days, so I'm just starting to get over it. Uh, and I totally spaced that I was supposed to do the the live today. I was just confused on my days and everything. So luckily, my girlfriend reminded me. So better late than never. um, so I'm gonna put the link in the description on YouTube in the comment section. I mean, not in the description, but so if you want to come and join, I figured today we were going to discuss Darwin's theory and if it's correct, and what are your guys' thoughts on it. So let me get the link for you guys and head over to YouTube. Snooch, how you doing, brother? Doing good? Yeah, no, I've been sick. I've been sick as hell, man. Oh, it's been nasty. And I was like totally confused on what days I was uh supposed to do my lives on, and everything's just been a big like jumble. Uh, Warren Osmond, hello mate. How's your head now? Did you have the allergy? Darwin is not correct. I don't know what allergy is. Is that like some kind of a sickness or something? I was sick as fuck. That's all I know, Warren. Um, so you don't think Darwin is correct? How come? Uh, While we're waiting for his response, Snooze says, "Yeah, good but busy. Snuck out to say hi, checking on ya. Oh hell yeah, dude. No problem, Snooch. Come and say what's up anytime, brother." Um, yeah, I think I might have to agree with Warren on Darwin not being correct. At least for people, you know. I mean, sick as a pig. Well, for a start, we have alien friends. Um, I don't think that Darwin, I mean, necessarily is correct when it comes to Homo sapiens. Anyway, um, even like some of his, like we got to remember that uh, that it's just a theory. That I mean, there's no empirical evidence that it is in fact a fact that is absolutely 100% true. I mean, there's no empirical evidence of it. It's just a theory. And so I think it's important to, now I'm not saying that the theory is wrong. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that I think it's important to check out every different avenue and to make sure that we, are choosing the right path uh when it comes to theories and believing stuff. I mean, I think the theory of evolution seems to make sense. Um, but when you get into the paradoxicals of it, like given enough time, is a bear going to turn into a whale sort of thing? I don't know. I mean, maybe, I guess. What up, Sergeant Shill? Um, what up, Sean? Sean is saying Darwin is full of crap. Well, of course. Yeah, it's taught as fact with no evidence. He was a Mason and tied with someone else prominent to push this hypothesis. 1% difference from us to pigs. Yeah. Yeah, so it seems also we didn't come from monkeys. That's what Warren Osmond is saying. Yeah, it seems, you know, unusual in the sense that, I mean, Homo sapiens don't seem to fit into his theory. And in fact, in the origin of species, he doesn't actually mention Homo sapiens. So why is that? Is that because his theory doesn't seem to make sense with people? I believe so. You know, I mean, uh, if we evolved from apes, then how come they're one, why they're still apes, but two, I mean, like, so what we split off from apes, or are they just a whole separate species? I mean, wouldn't it make more sense if we were just a closely related species? How maybe like a dog is related to a wolf, or like how a cat is related to a lion. Like in a sense you're related, but you're not really the same. What up, Cubid? How you doing, brother?
Not so bad, mate.
Let's see. My sound isn't working well today. Let's find out. Oh, hang
Sounds
on.
fine to me.
Say something.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
There you go. All right, cool. I had my headphone jack plugged in with my to my big speakers. So, Cubid, what's your thoughts on Darwin? You think his theory is
Well,
correct?
I believe in evolution. I don't believe in the li- timeline of evolution that we're being told. I think they've got it wrong a little bit. I don't think people are monkeys or have come from monkeys. I think we had two species going on there.
Even though there's like Australopithecus and all these other hominids, um, you don't think that they would necessarily come from apes?
I think some of these things probably did. But I think with evolution, what happens is Mother Nature, if you want to call it that, will get one thing and it will try it out in a completely different way. And if that dies off, it doesn't evolve. But if it doesn't die off, it will evolve. So I think there's probably a huge mix and match.
So I think that I mean, which is basically that is the theory of that is Darwin's theory. Is survival of the fittest. So that's basically his theory. It just doesn't seem to me that um, Homo sapiens seem to fall into that theory. I mean, hence one, which is why we have a missing link. You know, and with all these discoveries that we've made of all these hominids and everything, we've never discovered this link. It's still this link is still just gone.
But we could
It just doesn't.
discover it tomorrow. If there's
What's up?
if there is a link, if there is one thing that would pull it all together, we could discover that tomorrow.
Yeah, that's true. And that's the thing. What's going on, James? Um, it just like it we could find it. It could we could be it could be discovered, and then that would make all the difference in the world. But until then, um, right now, there is no actual link showing that we descended from anything else. In fact, it actually just shows that one day humans simply appeared on Earth. And until we find that link, that's really, I mean, that's what science and academia should focus on, simply because, well, that's the evidence that we have. And we're not using that evidence. In fact, we're making up a piece of evidence that doesn't exist for us to make this connection, for us to say that this is in fact true. I mean, I can see why it would make sense, but until you have that piece of evidence, um, we should just go off with the facts that we have. And the facts are humans came from fucking nowhere. I mean, we just appeared on the earth one day, dude. Fully developed as modern day man, that's the evidence that we have. Um, Sean is saying God made everything. The simple answer. I love it.
So okay,
Although,
if you're taking into account that Darwin is completely wrong, where did we come from? Did we come from Mars? Did we come on ships? Did we come through a meteorite? Were we implanted here? Yeah, what are we? Where did we come from?
yeah, I have no idea.
Did
What's
we
up,
come from
David?
Mars? Did we come on ships? Did we come through a meteorite? Were we implanted here? He's watching YouTube. What are we?
Yeah, David, make sure you put your YouTube, make sure you turn the YouTube down, turn the volume down on YouTube for the echo. Got it? All right, brother. What up, Arthur? How you doing, buddy? Although there are two distinct splices in our DNA, or Gas Mask is saying we can tweak DNA ourselves, so thinking aliens may have is a no-brainer. Yeah, that's true, absolutely. What came first, the chicken or the egg? Um, neither one of them really come first. Not if evolution is true.
Membrane came first. And
Yeah,
then it ended up over God knows how long because of evolution.
Sergeant Still says we came from England.
An egg.
Gas Mask is saying God is subjective. If you create a new kind of cow using DNA tweaking, are you then the cow's God? Fuck yeah. And I'll rule over that cow with an iron fist, goddammit. David, what are your thoughts, brother?
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we got you, buddy, loud and clear.
Okay, I want to make sure that I don't have an echo.
Yep, you're good.
All right. I think Darwin was correct in his original assumption down there on the Galapagos. Yes, there is evolution, and I agree with the other gentleman. I can't see your name, so forgive me. But I agree that evolution does happen. But as far as the missing link, I'm 65 years old, and I've been studying nature and everything since I can remember. And I don't think they're ever going to find, quote, the missing link, because I think that basically we are not from this planet, because all the Homo sapien stuff back before a certain period, you could maybe make the claim that, okay, this monkey's related to that monkey. But if you look at our DNA, we're the only species on this planet that somebody's tinkered with two and linked them together. And there are DNA factors that have associated our DNA with some of the great apes. And also, I think, like a macaque monkey. But I after all these years of study and looking, I just don't see how we just one day we were an ape and the next day we were walking and talking. And my biggest thing, as an engineer and a machinist for a bunch of years, I've worked with metallurgy. No one has ever come up with the idea or a straight answer to me that person A on one side of a mountain has copper ore, and on the other side of the mountain, they have what's needed to make bronze. Now, who taught them this? Are you trying to tell me that a bunch of monkey-looking guys, Neanderthals, were sitting around a campfire and somehow magically two compounds came together and made a metal? Nah, sorry. Yeah. Somebody had to teach them that. And when metallurgy was taught, that's when I think man, if you were, made it to the earth.
So right at the time when we first, so like the first age is like the Iron Age, and you say that would distinguish when we were actually brought to Earth or created on Earth.
Basically, because there wasn't any metal tools. I mean, we went from a stone axe, which is still, Flint's still a wonderful stone. But then all of a sudden, you know, there's bronze, there's brass, and as a metallurgist, you got to have your mess together to be able to mix any two compounds and turn them into a third compound. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And a bunch of guys sitting around. I mean, I could see sitting around and watching a log roll down a hill and go, oh, a wheel. You know, there's a lot of things that I could say, man, just kind of, ooh, the idea popped into their head by observing other things around himself. Now, how did they get two compounds to mix together to make any kind of metal whatsoever? I mean, even copper in its basic state has to be worked. So where did this come from? Who flew in and taught these guys from that sitting in a cave, excuse me, that, you know, oh, if you mix these two things together, you're going to get something else. I just don't see it. There has never been a logical explanation given, in my opinion. Maybe there is, but I have not found it.
Well, let's think about this. Like, so if you take certain stuff like certain vines in the Amazon and mix them with certain other plants and certain roots, you make ayahuasca. So they have an idea of mixing things together to make something different. You know, like if you mixed dirt and water together, you would make mud. You know, so they had that concept. So,
agreed.
You know, but I mean, I do see it being rather difficult to make stuff like bronze and stuff like that. Of course, if they're going to experiment and try something out to see if something else worked, I mean, you know, that seems plausible to me that a human would experiment and try to see what they, you know, I mean, like, you know, they discovered by adding, you know, carbon to iron and stuff, you could reinforce it and make it really, really strong. And that's just from having a charcoal, you know, so it was something that just naturally came about by them making a fire that it would add to it. So, you know, just, you know, most likely probably by accident, and then realizing what they had, their mistake or what they had done, led to something. Go ahead.
My point to that is that very rarely are both compounds. I can't think of what needs to go with copper to make bronze, but anyway, or brass. But my point is that copper's on one side of the mountain, a big one, and the element to turn it into something else is on the other side of the mountain. They're not side by side. So you know, you could say, I understand about, you know, mixing vines and things like that. That can be taught, learned, etc. over many years. But and you have to have a crucible. You can't just do this in a fire. You know, you have to be able to mix them. And a fire will not just melt metal. You have to put air to it. You got to bring it up to an extreme temperature. You know, I mean, there are critical things in this that I just don't believe they were sitting around the campfire and this just happened. A lot of other things, yes, but when you're trying to mix two metals together, you're trying to melt an aluminum can and then use it as something else.
No, that's a good point, because not only is it difficult with adding the two different compounds and chemicals together, or different metals together, but like David was saying, the temperature plays a huge role in it, and going above or below a certain temperature will in fact affect the metal and what comes out and how it's made, how brittle it is or how useful it is. It could be too soft or it could be too brittle. So you actually have to have the exact temperature. So, I mean, maybe they had a way of gauging it, but they must have had a way of gauging it, or else it doesn't seem like they would have been able to create any of that stuff, man. Sergeant Schill is saying metals are also collected from lava flows and meteorites. That's true. Some of the first swords that were considered magic swords were made out of iron from meteorites, you know, which they could in fact melt down the entire meteorite and use the metal from it to make a sword, and they are considered magic swords back in the day. It's interesting.
But who said grab this rock that has it needs to be melted to get the copper out of the rock. Who said, okay, put this over here, and you can't just use a regular fire. You got to make it even hotter because you got to melt the stuff. I mean, who put this idea of melting rocks together? I mean, just everything else, mixing vines, doing this, wheels, blah, 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 I think can be learned simply by observation. But to take a rock from one side of a mountain to a compound from another and say, okay, I have to increase the temperature of my fire. How do I do? I mean, the concept there is just so far beyond accidental. I just don't think they did it by accident. I've been machining stuff and melting metal and things for high-end companies. I used to work for Ford and Chrysler and all that as an engineer. And this just isn't happenstance. Okay. Somebody had to teach them. Now, were we from another place and we brought this information? Or were we already here? They tinkered with our DNA, which looks highly likely. Or did they just take a couple of apes and say, hey, we want you to, melt down the gold or blah, 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 blah. And we're going to show you how. And then they learned it that way. The 100th monkey kind of thing.
Or how about I'm building myself a little cave, or I'm doing some mining, and my shitty stone rock won't break this strange line of color. So I dig that line of color out, it being one of the metals we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm one of the lucky sods. And I also find a line of other color. And I find that is really hard as well. And basically experiment. I get where you're coming from, Dave, because I think there's been a few jumps in evolution, but I think a lot of them could have just been natural jumps, accidental, like Carl said earlier. Like with penicillin, there's a perfect example. And maybe I came along and met you in your town and you were saying, oh, I found this strain of this really weird metal that when you melt it, it does this. And I say, you think you're clever, do you? I found two. And if you mix them, even better. So it could be a passed on knowledge, which is probably more likely, but I completely get where you're coming from with where did the knowledge come from?
Yeah, what's up, Alex? Let me say what's up to everybody. What's up, Rob? What's up, Franco? How you doing, buddy? Dude, Franco saying, dude, evolution is correct. Just sometimes you might get some help. Such is life. Correct, Snitch is saying, love that guy and that meme. Oh, he must be talking about Georgios Tsoukalos. And I'm not saying it was aliens, but it's aliens. I know, me too, man. A lot of people on here actually hate Georgios Tsoukalos, man. I love him to death. I think he's great, man. That being the first discovery of such things, what's orchestrated medicine? Orchestrated medicine saying, I like how all these pricks used to walk around and be like, I'm sucking on some milk tit, some sheep tits, some venison tits, I'm beasting it up. That being the first discovery of such things. I have no idea what the fuck he is talking about. But all right. I guess that's one way to put it. What up, Corey? What's going on, brother? Yeah, I mean, I think that getting back to Darwin, though, I think that it's important to note that there are no human bones in the fossil record. I mean, humans don't exist in the fossil record, which is really interesting, but of course we shouldn't even be around long enough to have fossils, or the fact is that technically we should have been around long enough to have fossils, but there are no fossilized human bones. There are only fossilized hominids, and using the archaeological record, that's what we use, is hominids, not Homo sapiens. They don't exist in the archaeological record. There are no human bones in it, so we just assume that humans and these hominids are related, because they are so, you know, close, closely related to each other. They appear to be so closely related to each other that yes, there isn't. Yes, correct. There isn't. What up, Will MC?
John Lynch's comment is good. I think you guys are talking about globally layered convergence, which that makes sense.
What's up?
John Lynch's comment in the chat was, I think you guys are talking about globally learned convergence.
It's possible, but I think that it's important to note that that Darwin didn't actually specify Homo sapiens being in the origin of species. All right, reading the origin of species, it talks about every other animal, but it doesn't in fact talk about Homo sapiens. And it seems, odd that it wouldn't, because you would just, is it just implied that that also stands for humans, or is it implied that in fact it does not stand for humans because it is not in his book or in his theory? I guess it could go either way. But I mean, I think that, without there having to be any empirical evidence, then why are we creating this evidence that doesn't exist? So we just assume that it's going to be found one day. That doesn't make sense that we should be able to do that. I mean, it seems ridiculous in any other sense, just to make up evidence and say, oh yeah, well, one day we might find this evidence that connects us and proves this to be true. All right, well, if we don't have the evidence for it, then, you can't say that that's true. That doesn't make any sense, it seems like, it seems just ridiculous that we even, begin to use that as an actual theory, that we are that he could get away with that he could get away with saying, oh yeah, this is the theory, this is how it works out. We just have a missing piece of evidence, and when that piece of evidence is found, well, then we can say it's true. Well, until then, until we find that evidence, why don't we have a theory that goes off of the evidence that we do have? Would it make more sense to do that? I mean, if you're going to make up a theory, then how about the theory go off of, empirical evidence that you have at hand, not evidence that doesn't exist and that hopefully one day will be discovered. That doesn't seem to make any sense for making a good theory, but I mean, who knows, man. Cooper is saying elongated skulls are man-made. What the reason they did it is the real mystery. That's absolutely true, man. They have cranial binding and headboarding that they used to do to deform an infant's head for, to know its status and, inside its tribe or whatever, to show that this person was more important to us than somebody else. That's very true, man.
Well, if Darwin was wrong, where did we actually come from?
I'm not saying it was aliens, but it's aliens.
I think we are the aliens. And when you speak about proof of what we have or do not have, I hear an echo. That if you look at the evolution of a regular human's embryo these days, there is a point to where humans have a tail like a tadpole, and then all of a sudden, boop, we change and then we become human. How come we don't continue on with a tail like a tadpole? As far as I know, there aren't any other species on the earth that I'm aware of anyway that starts out looking like a tadpole and then ends up becoming a human being. Do you follow where I'm going with that?
I'm pretty sure they all start looking like a tadpole. and they all start out, if you're talking like from an embryo on, then I'm pretty sure they all start off the same way, you know.
Look at a human sperm.
Yeah. You know, I mean, I think like all species like start off the same way looking like that, you know. I'm not sure why that is. But, you know, I could be mistaken.
My point to that is there are other true facts that we can visually see now versus looking for something buried in the earth somewhere. You follow me?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, yeah, they're asking what we were Jack, the stripper, is asking what the topic is. The topic is Darwin correct? You know, is his theory correct? And I would say that it is in fact not correct for Homo sapiens, but is correct for the, you know, the like life in general, you know.
I agree with you.
Yeah, that, you know, and so in essence, yes, it would be the same. Like humans would have technically, you know, evolved. However, you know, that's going back to the very, very beginning. And you know, if we were a created species, you know, it would still evolution would still play a part in it. You know, I'm just saying that without that, you know, empirical evidence suggesting that this is in fact true, well, then why don't we go off the evidence that we have at hand and have a theory developed from there? Makes more sense to me than making up a piece of evidence that doesn't exist. You know?
Agreed.
Yeah. So, see who's on here. Trevioso saying, "Oh, in essence, nice vocabulary, Kyle." Yes, in essence. Cooper is saying, "Man, I read it, seen it, but it could have been a tribe that had a defect unless we have all the information it turns into. Could be, maybe, who knows?" Exactly. You know, a Forerunner is saying we are space guinea pigs.
If I may, I'd like to give a personal testimony, I guess it would be. And then I got to get out of here. But I thank you for the opportunity to let me voice an opinion.
Sure,
I do think Darwin was right in other species, but not in Homo sapiens per se. And I think that it has been inferred from the book that people have said, well, you know, if birds and fish and all these evolved, then humans must do the same. And I would refer people back to the great monkey trials in Tennessee way back in the 30s, I think. And it was very interesting. I would suggest folks look that up just to give a point of, you know, we evolved or were God made and just appeared all of a sudden. But one testimony I would like to give in response to UFO proof. I personally witnessed a spaceship being shot out of the sky by another spaceship over my head about the first week of May of this year.
What?
And my question with I was contacted a little over a year ago, and I still don't believe that I was contacted, but I was, because I've been told several times, go outside and we'll show you proof. And one evening that happened to me and was like, okay, you asked for proof of whether or not the space war was actually going on, if it was true or not, blah, blah, blah. And I witnessed an orange, well, because it was high in the sky, I just thought it was a normal satellite. But it was traveling at a different speed. And from my location in South Georgia, I just lived north of Tallahassee, Florida. And so it came out of the south from Tallahassee, headed north. And it crossed straight overhead. But just as it got past, 90 degrees overhead, a white orb appeared very close to it, shot a white beam at it. It disappeared. The white beam hit the orange orb and it just flashed and was gone. And I was like, holy shit. So that's just a personal observation Do UFOs exist? Hands down, I say yes. Because, like I said, I I saw one blow another one up out of the sky. Either that, something blew up, a satellite or another object, but that was about the last week of April or the first week of May of this year. And so that is my proof from my sources who say, go outside, watch the sky. You're going to be very surprised if you open up your eyes. And above all else, we have to open up our minds to the fact that this is a real phenomenon and not something made up. We got to stop thinking like that. We have to open up our minds. It doesn't mean that we have to believe everything about UFOs, but we need to keep our minds open to the fact that there are things we just don't understand.
Wow, that's
Like,
an
how did
incredible
we come up
sighting, man.
with metal, for example? That's just a little teaser for the brain.
So you
But
saw
I
a orange.
actually witnessed this, and I don't
David, you
have
saw.
pictures because it was almost dark, and I couldn't have gotten it anyway because it was up too high. But it did happen. It
So
is there. I've
you
seen
saw
other
an
things
orange
too, but
orb
that was
shoot
my
out
most recent.
David, hang on. You saw an orange orb shoot out a white light
Yeah.
and hit another orb.
The orange orb is I watched it travel for maybe 2 minutes from its southern location headed north, and it had just passed over straight overhead from me when a white orb appeared very briefly, shot out this white beam, is all I can describe it. It was bright white, really bright, and hit the orange one. But before the orange one blew up or disappeared, I don't know, it was gone. And I didn't see any fragments or anything like that. But the white orb appeared. It was like it came out. It was sort of like it couldn't fire its weapon until it came out of its cloaking device. You know, like the Star Wars or Star Trek kind of thing, which surprised
How
me. But as soon as it fired it, it disappeared, and then the orange orb, boom, was gone.
how long a period of time did this all take place over? Was
Say
it
that again. I had my
seconds?
sound turned down.
How long from seeing the first UFO, let's say, to
3 minutes.
the fight? 3 minutes. Okay. The beam that the one craft shot, was it like you said it was bright white?
Yes.
Was it a straight beam, like
Yes.
a straight line?
Like a
Um,
laser. And from my vantage point, from where it was up in the atmosphere, you know, I'm just guessing it was in a satellite orbit kind of height because I have no way to judge, you know, distance from it here on the ground, right? But the time the white orb appeared, the time as soon as it appeared, the white flash appeared, and it was less than 6 seconds. And that's probably a long time because it was like poof, bang, disappear, boom, the other one was gone. I mean, it that fast.
but was when it shot the beam, was it like zzz?
It was like a beam because
Yeah, but
it didn't stay
how,
on, if that makes sense.
how long was the beam going from the one UFO to the other UFO?
How long?
How long was the actual beam turned on, or was it like a zap?
It was more like a zap than because it's really strange because it happened so quickly, but it was distinctly 1, 2, 3 kind of thing. It wasn't a light beam that stayed on because the beam flash was there when the white orb disappeared. So it was I would consider it, like you said, a zap.
That's an awesome sighting, man. And where was this again?
I live in South Georgia, about 50 miles north of the Florida border.
All right, there you go.
And Tallahassee, Florida is like, if you can find Tallahassee, just go 40, 50 miles north of me. I'm in South Georgia.
And this happened, you said, of May of this year?
Either the last week of April or the first week of May. I should have wrote it down, but you know, it I'm still amazed after, you know, all these months. And I keep thinking, no, your eyes play. No, my eyes don't play tricks. I've been watching the stars since I was a Cub Scout, you know, in 1964, you know, and I've been watching the stars in the skies for a long time. I have never, ever seen anything like that before, ever. And I
Wow,
watch the sky a lot.
what an
Did
interesting
you
sighting.
file a MUFON report? That's what Chill's asking.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us, David. That's an awesome sighting, man.
Yeah, and I thank you for your coverage of everything. And I would just like to say to folks, you know, listen to everything, whether you believe it or not, because some of the damnedest things have come true. I mean, you know, stuff about JFK assassination. You know, I watched Lee Harvey Oswald get shot that Sunday morning before we went to church. You know, I mean, there are just certain things they were trying. You know, after all these documents come out years later, we found out so many truths that a lot of us, you know, I was a conspiracy theorist in 1965, you know, and I've lived like this for all my life because they, you know, they keep feeding us lies. And so if, like, I'm just going to touch on this for a second. For example, I watched the SpaceX landing. Now, this thing comes in at a, you know, with a 15-degree or 20-degree off of, you know, vertical. And, you know, within 100 yards of the pad, it suddenly rights itself and then lands. Are you serious?
Yeah.
They're lying about all kinds of stuff. But
They ain't lying about
show
that,
it to us over and over and over again, to the point where our, you know, our subliminal brain says, well, that must be true because I saw it on TV 3 times now. So, but
Yeah,
anyway,
let's see.
thank you for
But
what you
that's
do. Thank you for the conversation.
Hey, you're
I gotta
welcome,
go
buddy.
to town.
All right, David.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a great day and watch the skies.
You got
Bye,
it. All
y'all.
right, thanks, David.
You too, David.
I'm gonna have to disagree with David on the SpaceX landing. Just so everyone knows, UFO Proof does not think that that is a conspiracy at all. I absolutely believe that those rockets are landing themselves because we are clever beings, and it's something we could easily do. But anyway, that was an interesting story, though. His sighting was very interesting, man.
Mm. I'd like to have gotten more detail off him. I'd like to have known more about the laser, how long it was on for, and if he said it was like a zap, because he did agree at one point it was a zap. Was it like a little thin line, like in a computer game, going across the screen and going, you know, boom? Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. Something like that, you know.
I got the impression it was maybe more of a beam, but then when he said it was a zap, that was where.
Yeah, he's saying he could have seen something launch from Cape, you know, Cape Canaveral or whatever. That's very true. You know, he could have seen like a Minotaur rocket launch, and perhaps the you know, like when the stages are breaking apart and the firing, perhaps he saw something like that. Who knows? But he seems pretty adamant what he saw, man. So that's cool.
Plus, he said he was 65, so that makes me feel young. You sound a little bit better today, Kyle.
Yeah, I feel a little bit better. Not too much better, but a little bit better than I was, man. I was feeling like fucking death, dude. I was sounding like shit.
You sounded all weak and pathetic.
I know, dude. I was like, oh, sniffles. Dude, I'm like a fucking girl when I'm sick, dude. I fucking, you know, like I'm just crying and I'm such a baby, dude.
I'm all right, guys. I don't feel too well, but I'm all right.
I got one of those coughs that it hurts, like hurts really bad to cough, dude. And so it's like it's like super painful, like in my chest, man, to cough. So I'm like, so um, well, I mean, that was a cool theory. Uh, I'm sorry, getting stuck reading uh some of the comments on here. I've seen launches from Wallops Island here in DC. Uh, this shit happens to people. Yeah, closer to the Cape than where he is, and it's tough to see launches. Okay, so that's true. Well, Sergeant
What would
Sill is saying that he lives closer than he does, and it's tough to see launches. I bet you it is, man. What up, John Doe? What are you saying, Cupid?
if you were doing a summary on Darwin, then where exactly are you coming through, coming from on the whole subject? What
I think.
what
Go
would
ahead.
you
Go ahead.
sum it up?
Say it again. Summing it up.
Yeah, what would you how would you summon the whole Darwin thing up in your mind? What do you believe?
Um, I believe that uh that evolution makes sense. That it makes sense, but Homo sapiens don't seem to fit into the same category, and perhaps the theory is incomplete. You know, whereas there's other exterminating factors that would cause something else to happen, and that perhaps it's not always survival of the fittest, you know, um, and perhaps you don't always adapt to your surroundings. Some of these points could be made where it's completely different, like it is for Homo sapiens, where we change our surroundings to suit ourselves, um, other than growing fur, or instead of growing wings, we just build a plane. You get what I'm saying? Like, so it seems like maybe the theory is in fact true but incomplete, and I think that the theory needs to be reevaluated, and you know based off of what evidence is actually existing, and not evidence that we assume will be found one day in the future. I mean, I think that's so fucking ridiculous to say that. It's just to make a theory on anything with evidence that you just assume exists but you don't actually have. I could just assume that you're a killer, Qvid, and that one day I'm going to find the body of your murder victim. Does that make it fucking true? We can't go around doing that. It doesn't work like that.
How can you find your own body?
You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying, dude. You can't make a theory like that. You have to have actual evidence, or to make your theory make sense to me, the actual evidence of it. But you know, that's just me, man. Oh shit. All right. Well,
So
I'm
what
gonna
piece?
I'm gonna
What?
wrap it up. Go ahead. Go ahead, Cuban.
I was going to say, what piece of evidence, if they found it tomorrow, would fill the gap for you? Would it be human bones from God knows how long ago, or would it be something else?
Fossilized human skeleton. If you find
Right,
fossilized human skeleton, then I'll say, okay, it's correct. But until
right.
then, you know, I mean, that's what I want to see, a fossilized human skeleton. We've been around long enough that there should have been at least one. I mean, every other species on Earth has a fossil. Find me one fossilized Homo sapien, dude, and then I'll believe it. That's what I want to see. Well, thank you, Cubid, for coming and joining me today. I want to thank David
You,
for coming and sharing his story with us. Um, uh, they did find fossilized human skeletons. Where did they find these at? were these full blown Homo sapiens, or were these related ones? Yeah. There are some in the Natural History Museum in DC. I'll have to look into that. Yeah, I'm trying to think about when they would have ever reported. What is it? Is it are you sure that it's is it a complete skeleton? Oh, I'll look into it. I'll go see if they have a actualized fossil. And then I wonder, why would it not be included in the fossil record then? Is there a reason why it's not included in the fossil record? I'm just waiting for him to answer. The skull, at least, I was in there about 3 weeks ago. Yeah, I remember when you were in there. No, I'm not talking about Lucy. No, she's not a Homo sapien. You know, I would think that once they had a straight up human fossil like that, that they would, you know, it would be added to the fossil record, you know. But maybe it did happen and I just didn't know, you know. That could also be true. So all right, you guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, share my videos, go and buy some UFO proof gear, support me on Patreon, blah 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 blah, all that good stuff. All right, and I will see you guys back here tonight at 9 o'clock, 9:30, somewhere around then. And so make sure you guys come back and join me, and I'll see you then. All right, Cupid, thanks for joining me today. All right, brother.
You're more than welcome. It was my pleasure. Smell you
all
later.
Right, brother. All right, talk to you guys later. All right, UFO proof out. All right, later, brother.